Welcome back to the program. It's the Vicki McKenna Show. So to this Wisconsin Supreme Court decision to take up a case which doesn't even seem like it belongs in state court. It was a case that was brought by the ACLU and Voces de la Frontera, which is a open borders advocacy political NGO, demanding that sheriffs, so these are constitutionally elected officers in Wisconsin, be prohibited from assisting ICE in immigration detention. So Dan Lennington from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty joins me on the program. Let's just first start off with what I just said. It doesn't seem like they have the authority to make this decision, Dan. What is the sort of sense from your perspective as a lawyer?
Yeah, this is an interesting issue in the federal immigration system. Most arrests come through the state system or the state or local. What generally happens is that someone is picked up for drunk driving or they're arrested for assault and battery, and they are held in a county jail. In many counties, I think by my count, there's about 13 counties, will automatically notify ICE of the names of the people in their jail, and then ICE will let them know which one of them are actually illegal immigrants. So these people are being held on state charges for state crimes, lawfully held, and ICE will send them a detainer that says, hey, before you release this person, can you give us a chance to come and pick them up, because we have a federal order requiring their removal, which is usually for a criminal offense on the vast majority of cases. So counties honor this. They say, yeah, we'll hold this person because there is what's called an ICE detainer out there, and then you can come pick them up. There's only 2 counties that really expressly refuse to honor ICE detainers, and I bet you can guess which 2 counties those are.
Pick me. Milwaukee and Madison, Dane County and Milwaukee County.
Yes, Dane County is a sanctuary, non-compliant area. So if you pick up an illegal immigrant will smash your car up or rob you or assault you, the good people in Dane County will not notify ICE that illegal immigrant is in their custody. So ICE will never have a chance to pick them up and remove them. But there's apparently about 100 of these detainer notices go out from ICE to Wisconsin counties every month. So there's a lot. There's, something like 50 or 60,000 illegals in Wisconsin right now. And so the way to pick them up, the way to get them deported is generally if they break a local law, a state law, or a state ordinance, city ordinance, that officials from the ICE can come and get them out of the custody of the state system. But this new case will basically prevent Wisconsin sheriffs from cooperating at all with ICE, which could basically make Wisconsin a sanctuary state, so that illegals would not be deported.
Yeah, court-ordered sanctuary state that nobody made a decision to do. So can they do it? I mean, it's immigration law. This is the feds. These sheriffs cooperate if they want to. I guess you cannot. So can they be ordered not to? Can the court say? Because the ACLU is looking for an open borders policy that Wisconsin is a de facto sanctuary state.
Yes, this can happen. Now, on the one hand, let's think of a conservative principle here at stake, though. We don't want the federal government commandeering our state, like bossing the state around and telling the state what to do. This, Obama tried this with Obamacare. He tried to force the states to implement Obamacare, and the Supreme Court struck that down. So we as conservatives, we don't want the feds bossing around the states or the sheriffs, but that's not what's happening here. These are voluntary agreements. And in many cases, a local sheriff's department, and actually in all cases, the 13 cases in which there are agreements between county sheriffs and the feds, they get money. They get like $7,500 per year per officer. They get equipment. They get vehicles from the federal government as sort of a thank you for cooperating with us. So there is an incentive for sheriffs to participate in these agreements with ICE. And they do so 100% voluntarily. Now, what they're going to say at the Wisconsin Supreme Court is they're going to say, well, Wisconsin sheriffs don't have the ability to arrest someone for a civil infraction. And this, Vicki, is just immigration violations is just a civil infraction. And so when you're holding somebody in jail for an extra 48 hours, you're unlawfully holding them because you can't hold somebody in jail for a civil infraction. Well, that is actually not the case. These are, in the vast, vast majority of cases, criminal detention orders that are sent from ICE. These people who are here illegally, if you cross the border into the United States illegally, that is a federal misdemeanor. It is a federal crime. If you do it twice, it's a felony. I used to prosecute people for unlawful reentry, which was a federal felony. You get indicted by a grand jury. So the people who are here illegally are criminal. They have violated federal criminal law. And in Wisconsin, a police officer or a sheriff can arrest you based on probable cause if they know that you have committed a crime, including a misdemeanor. So there's nothing unconstitutional or unlawful with a law enforcement officer arresting you or keeping you or holding you longer because they have probable cause you've committed some other crime. But they're going to try to say that sheriffs don't actually have this power. And so when the state says you should be released or the county says you should be released on whatever, drunk driving conviction or whatever you've had served your time, that you can't be held over for ICE because that would just be civil. But that's actually not what's going on. But, could the Wisconsin Supreme Court misunderstand this and misread the law and say, actually, you don't have the power? I think that is very possible in this situation, and it's very likely we're going to become a sanctuary state.
Well, court-ordered sanctuary state based on, a complete error of understanding what is actually going on here. It's really interesting. I did not have the data that there are about 100 detention requests per month sent. That's 1,200 a year. And that I assume that's to all the 72 counties, even if Dane County refuses to comply. I know that Wisconsin right now did a good job of looking at rejection of requests for ICE detention. So that's a lot. That's not an insignificant number of people who have committed crimes beyond the crime of coming across the border illegally. But then there's that voluntary nature of all of this. So, on its face, this just seems like the Supreme Court should have thrown the case and never agreed to take it in the first place, because those memorandums of understanding have been around since George W. Bush. They've been operational for a very, very long time. And the dollars that are received from the federal government, presumably all that money, of course, disappears. But could the federal government, if Wisconsin does this, say, all right, federal cops grants not going to Wisconsin anymore? All of them, Milwaukee County, Dane County, Brown County, whatever. Could the federal government respond by denying federal law enforcement support dollars to the state of Wisconsin?
Yes, so there's a number of responses. So first of all, this would basically nullify what are called 287G agreements.
Yep.
These are the agreements where, local sheriffs, they get money for their cops, they get vehicles, they get equipment in exchange for participating in this program. Those would all go away. So that's real dollars lost. Of course, the federal government may say, well, we don't actually want to give you all sorts of little benefits we've been getting. The local police departments and sheriff's departments get a lot of support and equipment and things from the federal government. But almost all of federal crimes that are indicted or charged in the state, they all involve some sort of federal or state participation. Bank robberies, mail fraud, meth rings, identity theft rings, big drug conspiracies. These are all things that the feds and the locals participate and they work together on. And so there's certain benefits that the state can get by being a partner with the feds. You get extra training, all sorts of stuff. This could all go away. Now, another interesting thing here is that you might want to consider whether the federal government could actually intervene in this lawsuit. ICE may want to intervene and say, well, actually, this is what you're doing here in Wisconsin is actually preempted by federal law because we do have the authority to enter agreements with sheriffs. And this is a federal matter. That's going to be a tricky legal argument. But this is part of a nationwide effort to make sanctuary states. There's been about 5 of these lawsuits that have been successful in Minnesota and New York and other blue states where the state Supreme Courts have said, yeah, we can't cooperate with ICE. That's as far as our state law is concerned. the Trump administration hasn't jumped into these to try to federally preempt them, but Wisconsin may be a good example to try to set.
Well, they should, because then I suppose you would have the ability, to get it to the federal court system faster. Because presumably they're trying to do is make it so that you can't go into the federal court system on this stuff. But also Wisconsin's the known center of the political universe. So it does seem like you'd want to do something regarding that. And by the way, as you were talking, you've got state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies together working in task force capacity. You had mentioned drugs, human trafficking. You have constant working relationships with state, federal, and local law enforcement. That's so routine that why would that be bad? But why would this be bad? But that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's basically a carve out to say, like, your local chiefs and sheriffs that, they should be participating with the federal government on all sorts of stuff to keep us safe. But except for ICE, this is one exception, one carve out, because we want to keep as many illegals in the country as possible to help Democrats in elections. But everything else, we want to participate as much as possible. And we've had Democrat presidents before, Vicki, apparently. We have President Biden and President Obama and their FBI and their ICE and their Homeland Security and their Secret Service. They all coordinated very regularly, obviously, with local law enforcement on all sorts of things, including immigration enforcement, including removals and detentions and the prosecutions. And somehow now, though, it is so important that we keep these illegals in here, regardless of whether they're criminals or not. But apparently, especially if they're criminals, we want to keep them in the country. But this is just complete madness from a policy side, and the legal argument seems to be very, very weak. But I think we're on the path to getting sanctuary state status here pretty quickly.
Yeah, unless the Trump administration and ICE decides to intervene, and maybe they've just got too many irons in the fire. I don't know. Thank you for breaking it down for us, Dan Lennington. I always love to be able to pick your brain. I do appreciate the time on the program today.
Thank you.